Hi, the next topic is variables and data types in Java. Variable is a container that holds data that can change during the execution of a program. Each variable has a data type defining the data it can store. The variable of a program is going to help you to identify the state of your program. When I say state, example, let's say a simple application or say a game program, which is going to allow user to switch on and switch off a fan, let's say. So initially the person trying to switch on the fan will have the variable status in on, and when they are trying to switch off, the status is going to be off. So this state of a program can be held by the container. Then that container is going to be a variable, and this we call it as container, or we call it as some placeholder. And when I said gave you an example, the example was just talking about two different state, which is like on state and off state, which could also be seen in like a true state or a false state, or zero or one state. There are different types of state a program can have. For example, if the program is going to have a letter, let's say the user wants to key in some letter, and the output should be the letter that you are trying to key in. So during that time, you wanted to there is a type, there is a primitive type which will help you is, and that type is going to be char. And similarly, when you wanted to use numbers in your program, you might wanted to use int. Let's see what I'm talking about. So that is going to be your primitive data type, which is of eight primitive data types. And you also have a reference data type. There are three reference data types. First, let's focus on primitive data types. So you have byte, which is having a size of 1 byte, and you have short, which is 2 bytes, and you have int, which is 4, and long, which is 8 bytes. Most of the most of the enterprise applications will be handling whole numbers using long, and double when they do perform any calculations, and then they wanted to store those numbers. Let's say that you wanted to uh, add some numbers, and you wanted to do maybe let's say bank is trying to calculate some interest, and then they're trying to add it to your principal amount. Probably they'll be using int long, or then and they'll be using double. Sometimes when your calculation comes in terms of fraction, they'll be using double. And boolean, like I said, it is going to store true or false. It is not true and false. Let's not get confused here. Since it has only 1 bit, it can have either 0 or it can have either 1. And char is going to have 2 bytes, so it can store a single character, or it can store a ASCII value. Let's try to the next topic that needs to be continued after one has installed their IDE and also Java, and if they would have made a progress of executing the very first program, which is printing the statement "Hello World." Uh, the next topic one needs to understand is variables and data type. What is a variable? From the name, one can understand variable is going to be a placeholder for something that varies. And what it would do is it would continue to be available inside your program from the beginning to the end, and it will hold the information of various status of your program. Let's say, for example, if a person is entering a room, switching on a lamp light, and exiting the room by leaving the lamp on itself, uh, we will need a placeholder. A placeholder, let's say the placeholder is going to be your switchboard. Your switchboard is going to hold the status of off when the person is entering, and when the person is exiting, it is going to be in on state. So the switchboard is the only place you know that the switchboard and as well as the light. When you look at the light, you know that it is glowing, and when you were entering, that it was not on. So if you will try to correlate how the person entering, and let's assume that person entering and doing this, performing this operation is going to be your program itself. Assume this is going to be a game or something where the game is supposed to allow the user in the game to go and switch on some light and leave that light on and then exit. Maybe second player goes there and then the second player is already seeing that the light is on and he cannot off it or on it, something like that. So that is going to be your situation, right? So if you recollect the story that I'm trying to story that I'm trying to say, and how variable comes places. So the variable here is going to be the container that is going to hold the data that can change during the execution of a program. Each variable is going to have a different data type defining the data it can store. So Java basically what it does is it supports 8 different types of primitive data type. Data type is if the the situation which I was referring is going to have like two state, which is like the switch is on and then the switch is going to be off. So it is two state. Whereas there could be situation where the status could be of different types. For example, let's say that a person is going to enroll into a university. So if a single person is entering, so let's say that his ID is going to be 1. When suppose second person enrolls, it's going to be 2, and then it's going to be 3. So let's assume that there's going to be thousands and thousands of people enrolling. So you need a variable, you need same variable, but the same variable should also try to take into account of different types of numbers into account, which is going to be some identification number or something. So your the data type that I'm using here is an integer type. It's a number type which is called integer also. So similarly, for number you have integer, and then you have char, you have boolean, you have byte, you have short, you have double, you have double, and then you have float. So you have this many types of, so totally you have 8 primitive data types in Java, and you also have reference data type. Let me not elaborate it too much. Let's just see what I am talking about. So byte is a data type which will allow you to store numbers, which is going to be a whole number between -1 to 8 to 1 to 7. And you have short, which is going to have a size of 2 bytes. So here again, to have a simplified understanding of to put this in thing like simplified version, 1 byte is going to be like 8 bit. So 8 bit is going to hold 256 number. So if it is going to be 256 number, it is going to be like between -1 to 8 to 1 to 7. So when a programmer when your program is going to encounter the type as byte, and then when you will want it to use, and you wanted that byte, let's say this byte is going to be a short roll number. So short roll number can vary from -1 to 8. So you can have a person registering or using the short roll number from value -128 to positive 127. When you put positive 128, your program will not be able to uh, accommodate the next value, which is after 127, because byte is having only the size of 1 byte, which is only 8 bit. So you cannot exceed more than that. When you will wanted to exceed it, you are going to overflow. When the value is going to overflow, program will not be able to handle it when you use the smaller size data types. We will be actually trying to what to say, when we'll try to practically execute it, we will be understanding it bit more. The second what you have is short will have can accommodate 2 bytes of information, which is also a whole number. This has a slightly larger basket comparing to the byte basket. Byte basket is like 256, so this is twice that of 1 byte, which is this is 16 bit. So this can accommodate from -3 32768 to positive 32767. Similarly, you have int, which is 4 bytes, and you have long, which is 8 bytes, and then you have a float. Generally, people would be using long because long has more more room for the larger numbers. When if you see, it just starts from -9 to 3 3 to 7 to the a whole large number, right? And then you also have float. Float is for fraction numbers, so it can take like up to 6 to 7 decimal digit. People would use this, or they would use double. Mostly they would for an application which would handle like a 6 to 7 decimal digit, they will wanted to use 4 bytes. If the application wants to have more than 11 or 12 decimal digit, applications like, again, right, applications like banking or trading applications, or any application that's going to deal with calculations or money in case money, or even if you take any the Bitcoin values, things like that, all these things will have its value in the fractions. So during the fraction time, it is better to use double. And when you wanted to handle with large numbers, go for long. For small applications, people generally use int, long, double. And then there is boolean. Boolean's uh, capacity is just 1 bit, so it will take only two values, which is true and false. This could also be represented as like 0 and 1. So 1 is going to be a true value, and false is going to be your 0 value, which is like two values. This could be two values in the sense it can accommodate either 0 or it can accommodate either 1. It cannot accommodate both the things. And you have char is going to take two bytes. Like, it can store a single character. Like, you can print the hello world using char, but a char of an array of char, but not like with a single char. With single char you can print one letter. You cannot print multiple letter with char primitive.